Hello, thanks for purchasing one of our uRepair do-it-yourself kits. We prepared this video to help you go through the process of repairing your iPhone in an easy and safe way. All you have to do is follow the step-by-step instructions. So let's start by showing you how to open your device.
Hey, what's up guys? Today I will be showing you how to work inside of an iPhone 5G. Now, the first thing you need to make sure of is that your workstation is clean and properly organized, and then you have all the tools for this job. Now, here, I'm going to be using the tools that come in the kit. I'm going to be using the box for the kit itself, basically to place all my screws to ensure that I don't lose them. And inside of this box, I'm going to be creating groups with the components that I remove and the screws in order to make sure that I don't mix them up. Now, I have the replacement screen here for this device. A vinyl sticker. This vinyl sticker, we're going to be placing it on top of the screen. Want to help our suction cup basically grasp onto the screen better and to avoid any kind of injury. Now, here we have the replacement battery for the 5G as well. So let's go take a look at the tools that we'll be using. First, we have the little suction cup. This will help us open the device. And we have a plastic spudger, a little rag, just to clean your screen. Then we have a set of screwdrivers, pentalobe screwdriver, and then we have the Phillips, which are basically the main ones that we will be using. We have alcohol wipes. We also have the little eject pin for the SIM card, which is something that we won't be using this repair. We have a wedger, some tweezers, and a guitar pick. Now, first thing that we're going to do is we will install this onto the screen. We want to make sure that before we use our suction cup, we have good grasp on it. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, we don't want to cut ourselves. I just removed the paper backing, and then we're going to go ahead and align this as best as possible. Then when using our spudger, we're going to basically guide it along the top of our display to ensure that we have a bubble-free install. Okay, like that. Now, next step will be to remove both of the pentalobe screws located on the bottom of the device. Using the pentalobe screwdriver, we'll go ahead and remove both of them. Now, I like using my finger here as leverage. One, I don't like scratching the device. And two, makes it easier for me to find the screw itself. So now, every time that we remove a screw, we will be placing them inside of the box. Like I said, we're going to be grouping these. So let me open the box and place them inside. Now we have the lid to use as well. So when we do the screen replacement on this, I'm going to be using the lid to keep all the screws separated from the ones from the inside of the device. Okay, so there you go. We remove both of the screws from the bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and install our suction cup near the home button, basically on top of it, but we're going to shift it a little bit to the left. What we're trying to do is we're going to try to make it and align it as best as possible with your headphone jack over here. And we're using our little wedge tool. We're going to go ahead and place it right on top of the frame where the screen ends. And we're just going to hold it there. We're going to go ahead and start lifting on this suction cup to create this gap. And basically the reason to having the wedge there is looking for that timing in order to insert it. And so we could stop using the suction cup. Now, we don't want, when we're installing this, we don't want to have the edges of the suction cup over the sticker, like falling off of the sticker, because then basically we're, killing the purpose of using the sticker for just the suction cup. Now, let's go ahead and pull on this, and there we go. That's exactly what we're looking for. Now we can let go of the suction cup and then pry on this side of the screen. Hold it with your thumb, hold that gap open. We're going to go ahead and move on to the opposite side and do the same thing. There we go. Once we actually open the device, we're going to go ahead and release the clips on the side. We're going to go ahead and lift up the screen at a 90-degree angle. Now, this will allow us to gain access to this device. Now, first thing that we're going to do on here is remove the screws on this EMI shield. You see we have 3 of them. Now, the 2 on the bottom are exactly the same size, while the one on top is actually, if I'm not mistaken, a tad bit longer. but it's non-magnetic, which is the main issue here. So we want to ensure that these two go back into each corresponding location, and the one on top definitely goes back where it belongs. Now we're going to go ahead and remove both of the screws on the bottom, again creating small groups inside of our box. Now the groups are going to consist of these 3 screws that we're removing here and the EMI shield. So the way that I tend to do things with this is I will grab this shield, and I'm going to show you an example just with one single screw and the shield itself. But okay, before you remove the shield, guys, it's actually held on with 2 hooks, but the flexes itself are going to push on the shield itself. As you can see, I'm trying to lift it up here, but it's not me lifting up the shield, it's actually the flex is pushing up on it. So you're going to basically guide it up until it stops, and then you're done with the screwdriver. You're going to go ahead and pick up that screw, basically kind of just twist it out of there. I'm going to place it on my table here. Now the correct way to actually remove the shield is basically push it towards the battery to release the hooks. It has 3 hooks on there. See if I can show you guys, but it has 3 little hooks right there, if you can see them, and they actually hook onto the shield that you see right there. Now the way that I group things is basically I will place this inside of my map like so, and then I will place the screws near the location where they belong in. So for example, this one goes there, I will place it there. Then I have the other one that goes here, I will place it right next to there, and finally the last one here. So that's exactly how I create my groups, and that's exactly how I'm going to go ahead and do so inside of my box. Now finally, I'm going to move on to disconnecting the flexes. I have 3 flexes, guys: front facing camera, digitizer, and your LCD. So the first one here that we're going to disconnect is this one right there on the right side. This one is your front facing camera. So basically just go ahead and insert the corner of the flat side of your spudger underneath the flex and give it a light twist to disconnect it, like so. Make sure that you don't dig in there. If you were to dig in here, you could potentially damage the sockets. So now I'm going to move on to this one, and I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm coming from the right of the flex, and again light twists. Now as you can see, this flex actually came loose by itself. If in your case that didn't happen, then you will come from the left side and give it a light twist as well to disconnect it. Now let me go ahead and set this display aside, and as you can see, we have successfully disassembled our device. We have just removed the screen from it. This will allow us to work on either the screen or the battery, guys.
Alright, how are you doing so far? Once you've opened your phone, now you're ready for replacing the broken LCD screen for the new one. Oh, and don't forget that we can recycle your old screen. Just look inside your box and find the envelope that you can use for shipping your screen back to us at no cost. In exchange for that, you can even choose one free gift among the options, like a tempered glass protector or a car charger for your phone. Let's see now how to replace your broken screen.
Alright guys, so now that we have the device open, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to replacing our screen. So the next step is, since we're not going to be using our device, we're going to go ahead and place this aside. Basically just going to place it in front of me, and I'm going to go ahead and move on to disassembling this. Now this is the disassembly process for the screen itself is very straightforward and simple. It's basically just removing a certain amount of screws and the components from it. So the first thing that we're going to remove from the screen is the ear speaker. You have 2 screws in total holding this down, the shield that you see on top, and underneath this you have your ear speaker with your front facing camera. So let's go ahead and remove both of the screws, and I'm going to show you actually a very small difference in the screws, but something that will make a huge impact if you were to install them incorrectly. Now actually, you see that's the first screw, the one that belongs on the top. Let's go ahead and remove the one on the bottom, and let's compare. Now as you can see here, they're definitely not the same length. I mean, you could put them side by side and you'll notice that they're not the same length. So what we're trying to avoid here is installing the screws in the incorrect location. If you were to install the screw, let's say elsewhere, for example here, or this one, in this one's position, then basically you're most likely going to damage your new replacement screen. So you need to ensure that when you're removing the screws and you're placing them inside of that box to keep track of them, that you're doing exactly so, keeping track of them. You do not want to mix these up. That's something that I can't repeat enough. Now let's go ahead and remove the shield. Once you remove the screws, you could just go ahead and lift it up, and let's create groups again. Let's go ahead and basically, that's one group for me. You're going to place the screw right next to the hole where it belongs in and place this inside of your box. Again, we're trying to make sure that we don't damage our display or our device. Okay, so once we actually remove that shield, we're able to move on to removing our ear speaker. Now this thing is actually just being held on by that shield. So once you remove it, you could just easily lift it up and place it aside. Now, as you can see, we have two gold contact points here. Those contact points are actually the connection for your ear speaker. Actually, can't get it to stand up, but you'll see. It's these two little springs. They touch these two little contact points, and that's how you're able to hear when you get a call. If you misalign these things, then basically it won't work, or the sound coming out of it will sound kind of muffled. Now, another thing that will make the sound kind of distorted and muffled is if you don't actually get this little oval shaped part of your ear speaker to sit in this little rubber gasket that you see right here. If it doesn't sit in there properly, then basically you're not going to be able to hear properly. So make sure that that sits in there properly. The way to do it is ensuring that everything is nicely installed and flush. Now let's go ahead and place this aside and move on to removing the front facing camera. Now that we actually finished removing the ear speaker and the plate, we're going to go ahead and peel this off. This actually has adhesive underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and insert the spudger underneath here. And I'm going to go ahead and pry it up gently, not to break the actual flex itself. I'm just looking to break the bond. So again, like I said, gently. All right, so there we go. After you do that, go ahead and basically unfold your front facing camera. And finally, we have our front microphone here, this little golden square. That's the microphone for your FaceTime camera. So let's go ahead and unplug it by inserting the tip of the spudger underneath and prying it out of that little rubber gasket where the ear speaker sits as well. Now, again, this has a little circular tip. It belongs in this little circular location. Let's go ahead and place this aside and show you exactly what I mean. You have the circular one and the oval one. Now this is a gasket. It's made out of rubber. I mean, basically you could fit both of them in there, no problem. So just make sure that you place them in there. If not, they're not going to work properly. All right, next is basically removing the back plate along with the home button here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and remove the home button first by removing both of the screws, placing this in our box, again keeping track of things. After we remove both of those, then we're going to go ahead and be very careful. You're not going to go and lift up the shield right away because it actually has more adhesive underneath. So I'm not sure if it's actually bonded on here, but yeah, these two little contact points are actually the same thing as the ones on top. They're actually adhered, so it's easier on the ones on top, but this one we're going to use our wedge tool, and what we're going to do is pry it up. Now this one, like I said, it's not bonded. It's most likely been repaired before, but let's go ahead and, let me try to adhere them again just so you, for the purpose of the video. But yeah, there we go. So again, you're just going to try to dig under there without breaking them. All right, so again, that's fairly easy. If you were to rip this, then you have to replace your whole home button flex, which will basically, you just have to peel it off from this back plate. But we're not looking to do any of that on this. We're basically just trying to swap all the parts over and have a working phone after this repair. Now let's go ahead and place this aside right on top of the two screws that we removed. Now we have the actual home button itself, the plastic button. Go ahead and with your finger press it from the front of your screen to break the bond. It has a rubber gasket, as you can see, and it has adhesive on the edges. So just press on it from the front to break that bond. And if it has any residual glass from the damage that it sustained, like your screen, then just go ahead and brush it off and place this button aside. Next is to remove the plate itself. Now the plate, it's fairly easy. You just have a total of 6 screws to remove. We have the one on the bottom, then we have one on top, and 4 on the sides. This is the one on top, the one, it was right next to the ear speaker. Go ahead and remove it. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the ones on the sides. Now we have, like I said, a total of 4. We have 2 on each side. Let's go ahead and take those off. Now again, I will repeat myself, ensuring that you're not mixing up any of the screws, something that you don't want to do. So placing them correctly in that box and making sure that you're making a map for yourself. If you need a marker and write inside of the box to see where they go, I mean, go ahead and do so. Whatever makes your life easier in this repair. All right, let's go ahead and finish this. Removing 2 screws. Then we're going to be able to lift up the shield itself. All right, there we go, last screw. Now from the bottom here, go ahead and basically just lift it up and remove it, placing this aside as we'll be using it right now. All right, final thing is basically to transfer a few small components from this screen onto the new screen. Now, as you can see, there's a few things that you don't see onto the new screen. Now, we have here this little small block. Now, this little block actually sits on top of this little square right here where the screw goes in. Now, this little block basically ensures that when you install the ear speaker, the plate for it doesn't get bent. I mean, sometimes even if you over tighten this, it still got bent. So let's go ahead and basically just transfer that over. Place it where it belongs, press it down, making sure that it's in there. There we go. Alright, so not cooperating. Alright, there we go. Now, after we install this, we're going to go ahead and move on to installing the actual centering ring for the camera, which is this right here. Now, this one you actually have to break the bond. The way to do it is holding this in place to ensure that it doesn't fly off. You're going to get the flat end of your spudger. You're going to place it in between your rubber gasket. You're going to press to basically just pry it off like so. And then you're going to replace that onto your new screen. Now, the final thing is this little gasket. Actually, it's the same gasket. Yeah, underneath this gasket, actually, you do have the light filter. Now, this light filter is a little white film, and it only comes inside of the black screens. Now, the white screens, if you do have a white phone, then, be glad you have to actually get to skip this part. But black screens, you're going to go ahead and use the flat end of your screwdriver and press down on it and twist it to actually break the bond for that little filter. Using your tweezers, you're going to go ahead and lift it up and move it onto your new display. Now, you want to transfer all the small bits. This is actually very important. If you don't transfer this little paper, which is a filter, then your light sensor, which is basically the sensor that senses the brightness of the light, ambient light, won't work properly. So your phone will always stay dark All right, there we go. Now we want to install that. Now the next step is basically to install the ring. Just drop it in position like so, and then we're able to move on to the next step, which is reinstalling the shield onto this screen. Go ahead and peel your anti-static backing for the backlight of your device, placing that aside, and we're going to go ahead and reinstall the shield here, making sure that everything lines up, and then installing the 2 screws on top and bottom just to hold it down for the meanwhile, so you could install the camera, basically just to ensure that we don't lose the small bits that we just transferred. So let's go ahead and do this first. When you tighten the screws, make sure that you don't over tighten, so when you feel your screwdriver stops turning and basically is telling you to stop. Now you installed both of the screws here, the bottom and the top one. Next is to install the front facing camera. First thing that we're going to do for this is install the microphone. So you're just going to basically place it right on top of the little circular shape in the gasket and press down on it until it falls in place. It's pretty easy. Next, just make sure that your ring is aligned. Next, we're going to go ahead and drop the front facing camera into the ring. Now, you see this little purple glass? That's your light sensor. Now, this one, we're going to sit it inside the little gasket that we installed earlier and lower it, making sure everything is nice and flush. While still holding my front facing camera, I'm going to go ahead and reinstall our ear speaker. I tend to put this one in an angle just to ensure that the little oval piece falls in place properly. And if it does, everything should be nice and flush. I'm still going to hold my camera though, because the camera flex could potentially push the actual ear speaker away from everything. So now I'm just going to go ahead and place this over it like so. And basically just press down on the ear speaker with it. Like that. Alright, so there we go. Everything's still flush. I'm going to go ahead and install the bottom screw first. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the top one. And after we install both of the screws, we're going to ensure that the front facing camera is properly aligned. So what you do is, with your finger or the spudger, you're going to go ahead and push it until it's properly aligned. Okay, let's give that one another go. Alright, so if you have difficulties doing it, you can use the tip of your spudger or the flat side to do it, just to basically move it around and making sure it's properly aligned. Alright, now the next step in this process is to reassemble the bottom of your screen. So let's go ahead and grab our plastic button, the one with the little rubber gasket with adhesive around it, and drop it in place. You don't want to basically press down on it, you just want to basically drop it in there and flip your display. Make sure that your square is properly aligned, basically to make sure it looks nice. And then go ahead and press on it. Next is to reinstall the flex. Just place it in its location, making sure that the contact points are underneath that screw. There we go. Let's go ahead and install both of the screws for this to basically ensure that everything is being held in place. All right, next one. Okay, there we go. Now, as you can see, my flex no longer has adhesive behind it. That's basically because, like I said, it's been previously repaired. So just making sure that the screws are properly aligned and this is on the right side of your home button. If you're looking at the screen from the back, then basically it ensures that everything is going to work properly. Now, once you finish this, we're going to go ahead and move on to the screws on the sides of your frame to finish the reassembly of your screen. Let's go ahead and place this one in place. Next one. Always making sure not to over tighten the screws. Rotate the device or the screen for you pretty much, so you can see exactly what I'm doing. And the last screw. Alright guys, so if you have reinstalled everything properly, following directions and keeping track of all your screws, then basically you have just successfully reassembled your iPhone 5G screen.
Well, your repair is almost done. All you need to do now is reassemble your phone. So, did you think the repair was too easy for you? Maybe you have a natural talent for that. How about making some money with this? Yes, you can do just like me and join the iExperts, a community of repair specialists. Want to know how? Visit www.becomeaniexpert.com and be welcome to your new future. Now, let's see the last part of this video.
Alright guys, so basically now that we have done the repairs that we were looking to do inside of this device, we're ready to reassemble it. So the step that we're going to do next is pretty much just pick up your screen, place it at a 90-degree angle, and then we're going to go ahead and gently bend the flexes so we could have each one of them individually. And then we're going to go ahead and align the first one, which will be your digitizer, as best as possible. Basically, with your finger, you're going to move it side to side until you feel it drop into the position that you're looking for, and then gently press it down until you see that it stays in place. Sometimes you will feel a click or hear it. Now, once you actually plug in the first one, you're going to move on to the second one, which is your LCD. Before you do so, always make sure that the first one, which is your digitizer, is plugged in properly. On the 5Gs, they tend to actually easily get disconnected. So make sure that they're properly connected. Keep your screen always at a 90-degree angle so it doesn't actually get disconnected. Now again, with the next one, you're just going to lower it. Try to align it as best as possible, but usually they're going to be pretty much aligned since you plugged in the digitizer already. Press it in, feel for that click. You don't want to be pressing on them too often. Basically, just press it once and make sure that it's properly done. That's the reason we're looking for that socket before we press. You could damage your sockets or the flexes, so that's something that we're going to try to avoid at all costs. Now, next one is your front-facing camera. This one is a little bit more difficult since it's not rigid like the other ones. But with my thumb, I'm going to go ahead and guide it on top of the socket pretty much. And again, I'm looking for the same thing. I'm basically just looking for that socket. As you can see, mine actually went in pretty easy. But then I'm going to go ahead and gently press it, looking for that click that you just heard there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and rotate my device. And next, I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the shield here. Now, to reinstall the shield is actually a bit tricky. Remember that it has 3 little hooks on there. So we're going to make sure that that's hooked on, placing it in an angle like this and ensuring that they're all hooked on at the same time. Okay, once you actually hook them on, all your screw holes should be aligned. So I'm going to move over here and hold the plate with my finger as I reinstall the screws. Now, I tend to pinch the screws in between my fingers in order to align them onto the screwdriver, since I'm basically using up both of my hands. And then install one of the screws so I could let go of the plate and make it easier for myself. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the other screw. Now guys, remember that the last screw, which is the one on the top right, is non-magnetic. So we're going to go ahead and use our tweezers to pick this one up. And I'm going to just drop it in position. And using my screwdriver, I'm going to go ahead and tighten it. Remember, when you're tightening any of the screws, you don't want to over tighten it. So when your screwdriver stops turning, then basically you're done. Now, next step is to lower your display into position. We have a few clips here, as you can see them from there. We have 3. 1, 2, and 3. These are very fragile. You do not want to place your screen here and just press down, as you could damage them. We're going to go ahead and insert the screen at an angle like so to ensure that they sit properly where they belong. Now, once you actually do that, hold your device on top, rotate the device with your thumb. You're going to keep the tension on the top of the device, and with your opposite thumb, you're going to go ahead and press the clips in on the sides like so. Now, this part is not going to be a very difficult job. If you find yourself basically trying to force this screen in position and you're doing something wrong and you want to remove the screen, not disconnect it, but basically just remove it from the frame and then lower it once again to ensure that everything is properly aligned. Now, the next step is to reinstall the 2 pentalobe screws. We're just going to go ahead and drop them in position, both of them. And then with my finger, I'm going to cover them halfway. And with the screwdriver, I'm going to go ahead and push my finger out of the way to ensure that I'm not scratching the device or pulling them out of position with the magnetism from the screwdriver. Now, don't over tighten these. These are crucial to gaining access to your device. Okay, so basically once you actually finish this repair, you're going to go ahead and turn on your device, ensuring that everything is done properly. You're going to look for the function on your digitizer. You're going to make sure that it follows your finger every step of the way. So what you're going to do is hold on one of the applications, wait until it gets jiggly, and then basically just move it across your whole screen to ensure that everything is working properly. If it doesn't by any chance, just make sure, double check that it wasn't just you dropping the application by mistake. But if it does keep on happening, open your device, check your connections. Like I mentioned before, the digitizer cable tends to come loose quite often. So, alright, so basically guys, make sure that everything is plugged in properly. Make sure that you've installed all the screws in the corresponding location. And if you do everything properly, then you successfully will repair your iPhone 5G. Well, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you.